Welcome to the coolest stuff on the planet.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the coolest stuff on the planet. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're going to visit a place that's pretty much in our own backyard. We're talking about Cumberland Island in Georgia. And if you've heard of it, it might be because there's that connection with John Kennedy and Carolyn Bessette. That was the site of their wedding in 1996.
Yeah, who could forget that beautiful, iconic photo of the two of them walking out of the tiny little chapel?
Yeah, with all the candles in the windows.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. And Kennedy actually learned about Cumberland Island from his previous girlfriend. Her name was Christina Hogg, and he had actually gone there with her before.
Yeah, and she wrote a memoir about their relationship, and she talked about Cumberland Island in it. I just thought I'd read something that she wrote about it because I thought it was really nice. And she said, "I first heard about it from friends who camped there and brought back tales of an island as large as Manhattan with ruined mansions and feral horses roaming on white sand beaches. Without having set foot on Cumberland, I was already in its thrall."
We've pretty much been in its thrall ever since we started doing all this research.
Definitely.
It's such a special place. It's really small. It's only 18 miles long and 3 miles wide, and it's one of the sea islands, like we said, off the coast of Georgia. And the only way to get there is by ferry because there are no paved roads, there's no bridge to the island, there are no stores, there's not even phone service on the island. And unless you're going to camp in your own tent, the only place to stay overnight is a place called the Grayfield Inn.
Yeah, and there's an interesting story about that because the entire island was owned by the Carnegie family, the ones who made their fortune in steel, and they had built 5 houses there for their children, and there included one called the Grayfield Inn, or actually it's now called the Grayfield Inn. And this was back in the 1800s, but as time passed, some of the descendants planned to sell their land to developers who wanted to put up a resort on the island.
Of course. Thankfully, the rest of the family didn't want the island to be developed, so they either sold or donated the land to the National Park Service. And today, about 90% of the island belongs to the government, and no more structures have ever been built there. Grayfield Inn is the only place you can stay on the island, and it's actually still run by descendants of the Carnegie family.
Yeah, and most people visit the island because they have these really beautiful, unspoiled beaches. You might actually have the beach all to yourself.
Well, there might be some wildlife running around, you never know. We'll talk about that in a second.
That is true. People will go there collecting shells, they'll fish, swim, bird watch, because there's about 300 species of birds that have been spotted there because it's a stop-off spot for migrating birds.
There's a lot of wildlife on the island, and one of the most famous things the island is known for are the wild horses. And they're not really exactly sure how the horses got there, but it's thought that they were brought there by the Spanish back in the 1500s. And visitors really want to see the horses more than just about anything else.
I know I do.
Me too. But there's all kinds of other wildlife. You might see wild turkeys, there's loggerhead turtles, otters, white-tailed deer. You might even see a feral hog or a bobcat.
I'd be scared to see that feral hog coming towards me.
Me too. A bobcat? I mean, I'd be shocked to see a bobcat on a beach. But all of the animals are generally more active at dawn and dusk because it's a little bit cooler. And so if you really want to see the wildlife, it's best to plan an overnight stay.
Now, if you're more into history, you can visit the Dungeness Historic District. And this includes the ruins of a 59-room castle that was once owned by Lucy Carnegie, the widow of Thomas Carnegie, brother of Andrew. This was destroyed by fire in 1959. You can still see the ruins, plus the servants' quarters, laundries, and other buildings.
Yeah, and the ruins are just really majestic, and you've got the Spanish oak with the moss, and it just really has a great feel to it.
Really eerie.
Yeah. And then there's another mansion. It's called the Plum Orchard Mansion, and this one is fully intact. It's a 22,000 square foot Georgian revival, and it was built in 1898 by Lucy, and she built it for her son George. And it is actually open to the public for tours.
That's right, and it's a pretty recent restoration.
Yeah.
And another place of interest is the settlement, which was an area built for black workers during the era of segregation. And one of the few buildings that's still left is the First African Baptist Church, which has just 11 handmade pews. It seats about 40 people, and you can see that site and the others that we mentioned on tours offered by the National National Park Service.
Yeah. To get to the island, you take the Cumberland Island ferry from St. Mary's, Georgia, which of course is just right there on the coast. And once you get there, you either have to walk or you can rent a bicycle. No cars are permitted.
Yeah, no roads for the
No roads.
Yeah.
And the National Park Service also has campgrounds available for overnight camping. You can bring your own tent if you want to.
Yes, or you can stay at the inn.
Do it like the Carnegies did.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our visit to Cumberland, and we'll have a lot more on the fascinating history of this island on our blog. And if you've been, why don't you let us know on Facebook or Twitter, or send us an email.
Yeah, and we'll have all the addresses for those at the end of the podcast as always. And we'll see you next time on the coolest stuff on the planet.
For more on this and thousands of other topics, visit howstuffworks.com. Don't forget to check out our other podcasts, free on iTunes.